Chosen one. Listen closely, because this message is for the chosen ones, those destined for greatness, but somehow still stuck, blocked, and unseen. What if I told you that there are 8 critical mistakes standing between you and your blessings right now? These aren't small slip-ups, they're silent saboteurs, hidden traps that choke your breakthrough before it even begins. The good news? You can fix every single one, but only if you act fast, before it's too late. Your destiny is calling, but it won't wait forever. It's time to cut through the noise, break free from the chains, and open the floodgates to your blessings. Are you ready to unlock what's been held back? Because what you don't fix today could cost you everything tomorrow. Before we go deeper, chosen one, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and comment, "I am ready," for a surprise that only the awakened will understand. It starts quietly. You're in the same places, around the same people, doing the same things. But something feels off. The jokes that used to make you laugh now feel empty. The late-night conversations feel repetitive, like you've heard them 1,000 times before. You're physically there, but your soul is somewhere else. It's like your spirit has already moved on, while your body is still finishing the paperwork. And this is the moment where most chosen ones get confused, because nothing bad happened, yet nothing feels the same anymore. That strange disconnect isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. You're not losing passion for life. You're losing attachment to the life that's too small for you. Then it hits even harder. The people you once called friends, the ones you used to confide in, start feeling distant. It's not that you hate them or wish them harm. It's just that the spiritual frequency changed. You're thinking about purpose, peace, healing, and elevation, while they're thinking about distractions, competition, and comfort. They talk about problems. You're searching for solutions. They complain. You're transforming. They stay in cycles. You're breaking generational patterns. And the more you grow, the more obvious the disconnect becomes. What used to bond you now separates you, not because you're better than them, but because you're called to something bigger than who you used to be. And before you even realize it, old emotional triggers start dissolving. The things that used to irritate you don't. The comments that once hurt you don't. The opinions that once controlled you don't. People don't change, you do. Suddenly, you don't have the energy to argue, prove yourself, beg for attention, or explain who you are anymore. Not because you've become numb, but because your peace has become more valuable than their validation. You start feeling this fierce clarity, a calm confidence, a silent knowing that you don't need to win every battle, because you're finally fighting the right war, the war within. And every time you choose healing over reacting, your spirit levels up. Next comes the part that scares most chosen ones, the urge to stop fighting for spaces that don't want you. You stop forcing conversations. You stop chasing people who walk away. You stop trying to convince anyone of your loyalty, your worth, or your intentions. Instead of knocking on closed doors, you simply turn around. You realize that anything that leaves your life right now is making space for something aligned with where you're going. Rejection stops feeling personal and starts looking like redirection. What you used to beg for, you now release without hesitation. And that is when God starts sending replacements for everything you had the courage to walk away from. But the most powerful shift, the one that transforms your entire life, is when growth becomes more important than validation. The applause doesn't excite you. The criticism doesn't shake you. You don't need your evolution to be understood, liked, or approved by anyone. You're no longer performing for acceptance. You're evolving for alignment. You move not because others say you should, but because your soul refuses to remain where it no longer thrives. That's when you realize something big. Outgrowing your past isn't the hardest part. Not shrinking back into it is. Every blessing you're about to receive depends on one decision. Will you honor who you are becoming, or return to who you were just to make others comfortable? Right now, chosen one, you are standing at the doorway between your old life and your destined life. You can feel it. You're not who you were, and you're not yet who you're becoming. This stretch, this tension, is confirmation that you're close, very close. The past is pulling, the future is calling, and your spirit knows exactly which direction to choose. Growth never happens in comfort, and comfort never leads to destiny. If your life feels unfamiliar, isolated, or unpredictable right now, understand this. It's because God has officially started the upgrade. You start realizing how many years you spent shrinking yourself just to be accepted. How many decisions you delayed because you were terrified of someone disapproving. How many versions of yourself you killed just to fit into places you were never meant to stay. And suddenly, there's this inner rebellion, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and unstoppable. You stop waiting for someone to say, "It's okay to be who you are." You stop asking for permission to follow your calling. You move from explaining your dreams to protecting your dreams. You stop asking people what they think and start asking yourself what feels right. You don't need a panel of opinions to validate your path. For the first time, you give yourself the permission everyone else refused to give you. And that's when the power of silence hits you. You don't debate to prove your innocence. You don't argue to prove your value. You don't fight to force someone to see your heart. You simply go quiet. Not because you have nothing to say, but because their understanding is no longer a requirement for your peace. Silence becomes your shape-shifting armor. When someone tries to trigger you, you don't flinch. When someone misjudges you, you don't defend yourself. When someone plays mind games, you don't participate. They expect a battle, but you hand them emptiness. And nothing frustrates the low vibrational world more than a chosen one who no longer bleeds from the wounds others try to reopen. Then another shift arrives, a transformational one. You stop needing to be understood. Not everyone has the emotional or spiritual maturity to comprehend your frequency. Some people can only love you when you're small, predictable, and available for their comfort. The moment you grow beyond their limitations, they call you different, distant, changed. And the truth is, you have changed. But instead of defending your growth, you protect it. You stop explaining your healing to those committed to their pain. You stop proving your loyalty to people who benefit from doubting you. You stop seeking approval from individuals who are intimidated by your evolution. You choose peace, not because peace is passive, but because peace is expensive. And you're done giving it away cheaply. Soon, you notice patterns in your relationships. The ones who love your light will draw closer. The ones who fear your light will distance themselves. You no longer beg anyone to stay. When someone walks away, you don't chase, because you've learned that anyone who can walk away was never assigned to your destiny. You no longer audition for a role in anyone's life. You don't glue what falls apart. You don't resurrect what God buried. There is no desperation, no bargaining, no convincing. You don't fear losing people. You fear losing yourself again, just to keep them. The moment someone chooses distance, you choose direction, forward. And then comes the most life-altering revelation. Validation from self becomes non-negotiable. You stop dressing to be noticed. You stop speaking to be applauded. You stop performing to be accepted. You start living from the inside out instead of the outside in. You begin asking, do I approve of this version of me? And when the answer is yes, nobody else's opinion matters. You look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. Not a watered-down version, not a social mask, not a role someone assigned you, but you. Raw, real, aligned. You begin trusting your intuition over other people's expectations. When something doesn't feel right, you walk away, even if no one understands why. When something resonates, you pursue it, even if everyone thinks you're insane. You stop needing to justify your decisions because your inner voice becomes louder than their outer noise. The doubt that once destroyed you now becomes fuel. Every time someone underestimates you, you grow stronger. Every time someone rejects you, you become wiser. Every time you validate yourself, you become unshakable. You develop a level of self-respect that used to scare you. Not ego, not superiority, just a deep knowing of your worth. You don't tolerate breadcrumbs when you deserve the feast. You don't give unlimited access to people who bring limited effort. You don't settle for almost, maybe, or potential. You don't submit to guilt trips, emotional manipulation, or backhanded affection. Your soul refuses it. Your spirit rejects it. Your energy repels it. You magnetize only what aligns with the version of you that finally loves itself. And that's when life starts reflecting back what you've become. The wrong people exit effortlessly, confusion clears, mental fog dissolves. Suddenly, you're surrounded by situations that require your authenticity, not your disguise. People who respect your boundaries instead of testing them. Opportunities that match your integrity instead of your insecurity. Peace doesn't have to be forced. It becomes the standard. You don't have to beg to be seen. You're recognized naturally. You don't have to fight for a seat. God prepares a table. You no longer live for applause, attention, or agreement. You don't need confirmation from others to feel chosen. You were chosen before anyone had an opinion. And the moment you stop letting others decide your value, the world stops being something you fear and becomes something you shape. The breaking of approval addiction is the moment the chosen one becomes untouchable, because no one can take away what they didn't give you in the first place. And now that your peace, your identity, and your voice come from within, nothing external can control you ever again. Isolation stops feeling like abandonment and starts feeling like clarity. The silence that used to scare you becomes the very thing that heals you. When there's no one to impress, no one to perform for, no one to please, you meet the rawest version of yourself. And that version is the one God always intended you to become. Loneliness becomes a spiritual detox because every person, habit, and belief that once distracted you starts falling away. Your nervous system stops bracing for chaos. Your heart stops chasing what hurts. Your mind stops replaying memories of who you were supposed to be for others. And in the stillness, you remember yourself. People wonder why you withdrew. They call you distant, cold, different. They don't know that isolation wasn't your idea. It was your calling. God hides you before He reveals you. Every chosen one gets pulled out of the crowd before they're elevated above it. He separates you from noise because your purpose requires precision. Had you stayed in the same environments, you would have shrunk again. Had you continued giving access to the same people, you would have forgotten your worth again. This solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. You start seeing the separation differently. The invitations slow down. The phone stops ringing. The social circle tightens. At first it hurts, then it starts making sense. Anything that couldn't go with you simply fell away. Anything that didn't align with where you're going cancelled itself. You didn't lose people. You lost attachments. The ones who were sent to distract you can't reach you anymore. The ones who were sent to elevate you haven't arrived yet. And in between those stages, you're being refined. Your instincts become louder. You feel things before they happen. You discern people instantly. The energy of a room becomes more important than the reputation of a person. You no longer ignore the tightening in your chest, the quiet warnings in your mind, the sudden discomfort in your spirit. Discernment becomes your compass. You learn to trust the pause, the hesitation, the uneasiness, because every time you ignored those signs in the past, you paid for it. Now you listen. And because you listen, you avoid storms you once would have walked into blindly. And isolation reveals what crowds conceal, who is truly aligned and who never was. When you stop giving constant access, you see the truth. The genuine ones remain consistent. The opportunists disappear. The envious ones grow distant. The loyal ones get closer. You learn that someone doesn't love you because they stay when you're shining, but because they stay when you're hidden. Isolation exposes false support and amplifies authentic love. It hurts at first, then it protects you forever. From this sacred separation, another transformation begins, the healing of your financial wound. You start questioning the belief that struggling is normal. You look at your history and finally understand scarcity wasn't your identity. It was a pattern. It was inherited, taught, repeated, normalized, but never destiny. You stop treating money like something that runs away from you and start treating it like something that responds to your energy. You stop praying for overflow while living in lack-minded habits. You stop calling survival mode humility. You stop glorifying self-neglect as loyalty. Money stops being the enemy. The guilt around wanting more dissolves. You realize poverty didn't make you pure. It made you exhausted. You understand that abundance doesn't corrupt good people. It exposes them. When your heart is aligned, more only gives you more power to give, build, help, and change. You drop the subconscious belief that having less makes you morally superior. You stop idolizing struggle and start honoring sustainability. You learn self-worth in places where you once learned self-sacrifice. You stop doing free emotional labor, free spiritual labor, free physical labor just to feel needed. You stop bleeding yourself dry so others can feel whole. You don't let people guilt you into providing for their irresponsibility. You don't apologize for prioritizing your needs. You don't pour from a cup that nobody ever fills. The version of you who overgave to feel valued doesn't exist anymore. And you stop enabling financially irresponsible people. You don't fund another adult's lack of discipline. You don't save people who refuse to save themselves. You don't interrupt consequences that are meant to teach them responsibility. You don't let emotional manipulation drain your bank account. You don't allow guilt to control your generosity. You learn that love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. And you refuse to destroy yourself again. The moment you stop apologizing for wanting better, opportunities appear, ideas flow, doors open, resources find you. Opportunities that were always there suddenly become visible because your mindset finally allows you to receive them. You walk away from scarcity-based jobs, scarcity-based partnerships, scarcity-based friendships. You don't dim your ambitions to make anyone comfortable. You no longer feel guilty for wanting a life that reflects the work you've done on yourself. You stop disqualifying yourself mentally before the world has a chance to qualify you physically. You welcome opportunities without guilt. You embrace blessings without doubting whether you deserve them. You move forward without waiting for everyone to clap. You stop wondering if you are worthy of more and start preparing for it. Your energy shifts from "I hope I can" to "I know I will." Money stops defining your identity and starts responding to your alignment. Your bank account becomes a reflection of your boundaries and beliefs instead of your trauma and insecurities. Isolation taught you who you are. Healing taught you what you deserve. And now your life is beginning to align with both. The shift becomes undeniable when habits you once clung to begin falling away without resistance. You don't have to force discipline. It appears on its own. The foods that numb you don't tempt you. The routines that kept you stagnant no longer satisfy you. The people who once influenced you no longer have access to your mind. The identity you used to protect starts dissolving because it cannot survive in the reality you're stepping into. The masks you wore to please others feel heavy, and the authentic self you suppressed refuses to stay in the shadows any longer. You detach from every label others placed on you: the quiet one, the fixer, the strong one, the broken one, the family disappointment, the loyal friend, the people pleaser, the one who never says no, the one who carries everyone else's weight. All of those identities fall away when you finally realize they were never reflections of who you are, only reflections of who others needed you to be. You stop living according to their script and start living according to your soul. You stop apologizing for evolving. Growth stops being something you feel you need to justify. You stop saying, "I didn't mean to change," because you did mean to. You stop pretending you're the same person to make others comfortable. You don't shrink yourself to match their expectations. You stop over-explaining your healing, your distance, your boundaries, your standards. You stop diluting yourself for rooms that can't handle your full identity. You know you're different now, and you embrace it. Boundaries stop being something you negotiate. They become automatic. You don't need to rehearse them, explain them, or defend them. Your energy does the filtering before your words even begin. Certain behaviors don't get a second chance. Disrespect doesn't get tolerated. Manipulation gets exposed instantly. You no longer argue with people about how to treat you, because anyone who needs a lesson in respect won't be allowed close enough to test you. Your self-worth creates a perimeter that only the aligned can cross. And in that alignment, you step directly into your higher self. Not someday, not when you feel ready. Now, you show up as the version of yourself you used to fantasize about. You act boldly. You speak with clarity. You make decisions that match your destiny, not your fear. Confidence stops being something you perform and becomes something you embody. You look in the mirror and realize the old identity didn't die because you failed. It died because you outgrew it. The clarity continues when you face distractions without hesitation. You finally recognize who feeds your spirit and who feeds off your spirit. You see the people who only show up when they need something. You see the conversations designed to drain you. You see the connections that run on drama instead of growth. You recognize how many times you lost yourself trying to save others from themselves. The moment you become aware, tolerance disappears. Emotional chaos no longer gets a reaction out of you. The people who used to trigger you can't pull you into their storms anymore. The cycles they live in are cycles you escaped. They try guilt, shame, anger, competition, jealousy. Nothing hooks you. Your nervous system knows the difference between urgency and manipulation. The peace you worked for becomes too valuable to sacrifice for temporary entertainment disguised as conflict. Purpose begins replacing entertainment. You become more invested in building than escaping. You choose elevation over distraction. You would rather create than consume. The things that once stole your time don't appeal to you because you finally understand what your time is worth. Your attention becomes a sacred commodity, and you refuse to sell it to anything that doesn't build your vision. Instead of spending hours scrolling, venting, comparing, or avoiding life, you prioritize what you're meant to become. The world around you loses its grip because you stop letting everything and everyone rent space in your mind. You know where you're going, and you don't need spectators to cheer for you along the way. As your focus sharpens, you become unstoppable. What used to distract you now exposes itself instantly. What used to tempt you now repels you. Vision becomes stronger than impulse. Momentum becomes stronger than doubt. Focus becomes your spiritual weapon, not to fight others, but to protect your destiny from the noise that once controlled it. With that focus comes the most mature transformation of all, the acceptance of divine timing. You stop trying to rush what's already yours. You stop obsessing over when things will happen and start trusting that they will happen. You understand that what's meant for you won't show up a second too early or a second too late. You no longer compare your timeline to anyone else's because you finally recognize that each delay is a strategic blessing. Delays no longer feel like rejection. What doesn't happen immediately doesn't trigger insecurity or fear anymore. It triggers curiosity and insight. You start asking, what is this delay protecting me from? What is this pause preparing me for? And you realize every time life slowed down, something bigger was being set up behind the scenes. Your awareness sharpens to the point where you start noticing signs instead of ignoring them. You see patterns, synchronicities, reminders, warnings. You stop calling intuition a coincidence. When something tells you to pause, you pause. When something tells you to move, you move. When something tells you a door isn't right, even if it's shiny and tempting, you walk away without hesitation. You stop forcing outcomes. If a situation requires begging, pushing, or manipulating, you already know it's not aligned. You don't need to chase what's yours. You don't need to prove your worth to what's meant for you. The energy of struggle is replaced by the energy of surrender, not giving up, but giving control to God instead of fear. Patience becomes your power. You wait without collapsing. You hope without desperation. You rest without guilt. Your timing becomes a reflection of your faith, not your insecurity. You understand that blessings aren't late, they're strategic. Setbacks aren't punishment, they're protection. Delays aren't failure, they're preparation. Your life stops operating on human timing and starts operating on divine timing. You no longer panic when something doesn't arrive instantly because you now know that anything built too fast collapses just as fast, and anything built at the right time lasts forever. Fear of disappointing others used to control your every move. You said yes when every fiber of your being screamed no. You stayed silent when you wanted to roar. You diluted your voice to avoid conflict and dimmed your light to avoid envy. But now, that fear no longer holds power over you. You recognize that disappointing others is sometimes the only way to stay loyal to yourself. You're no longer trapped in the endless cycle of people-pleasing because you've discovered that living to please everyone is living to please no one, especially not yourself. Your energy becomes your most precious possession. You protect it like sacred ground. You don't allow anyone to trespass without permission. When someone tries to drain your joy, you pull back without guilt. When others expect more than you can give, you establish boundaries without apology. Your time, your focus, your heart. These are no longer free resources to be exploited. Guarding your energy isn't selfish, it's essential. It's the foundation that allows you to pursue your purpose with clarity and strength. No becomes a revolutionary act of self-respect. It is no longer a word that triggers anxiety or second-guessing. It becomes a statement of power. Every time you say no to something that doesn't serve your vision, you say yes to your destiny. Saying no doesn't mean you are unkind or uncaring. It means you honor your limits and protect your potential. You no longer feel obligated to explain yourself to those who don't understand your journey. Your no is final because your peace is non-negotiable. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You refuse to mute your brilliance to avoid jealousy or misunderstanding. You refuse to dim your truth to fit in or avoid rocking the boat. Your growth demands space, and you create it unapologetically. You own your power and presence fully. No more hiding, no more minimizing. The world needs your authentic light, not a faded version of yourself. You understand that true leadership begins with self-ownership, not self-sacrifice. Instead of convincing or explaining, you lead by example. Your actions speak louder than any words ever could. You become a living testament to transformation, resilience, and faith. People are drawn to your energy, not your excuses. You don't waste time trying to justify your choices or prove your worth. Your life, your discipline, and your growth become the undeniable proof of your purpose. Leading by example creates an unstoppable momentum that words alone can never achieve. As your purpose sharpens, so does your circle. The wrong people fall away effortlessly. You don't have to force anyone to stay, and neither do you have to chase those who choose to leave. The ones who remain are there because they resonate with your evolution. They don't drain your spirit or distract you. They elevate it. These departures aren't losses, but necessary cleanings that make room for what's real. Genuine souls show up unexpectedly. They come with no agenda, no judgment, only alignment. They mirror your values and respect your boundaries. Their presence feels like a homecoming, familiar, comforting, and uplifting. These are the people who celebrate your victories without envy and support your growth without conditions. You no longer settle for surface-level connections. You crave and cultivate soul-level relationships. Your conversations deepen and your intentions become clearer. Small talk fades into meaningful dialogue. Discussions about drama or gossip give way to talks about vision, healing, and purpose. You recognize that energy compatibility matters more than history or convenience. It's no longer about how long you've known someone, but how they make you feel and how you move forward together. Divine connections replace trauma bonds. You no longer hold on to relationships rooted in pain, codependency, or unresolved wounds. You release toxic ties that once felt like safety nets. Instead, you welcome connections that nourish your spirit and inspire your best self. These relationships align with your soul's frequency and propel you toward your destiny, not pull you back into past cycles. The warrior spirit within you awakens fully. You stop hiding your strength to fit in or avoid intimidating others. Your power is no longer a secret. It's a declaration. You wear your scars like medals, each one telling a story of survival, resilience, and growth. What once was a source of shame becomes your greatest credential. Challenges no longer trigger panic or paralysis. You meet adversity with calm and courage. You understand that every obstacle is a test designed to strengthen your resolve and refine your character. You don't avoid struggle. You embrace it as part of your journey. Discipline becomes your default mode when motivation wanes, because you know that purpose requires consistency beyond fleeting feelings. You realize you are built for victory, not mere survival. Your existence isn't about getting by or playing small. It's about thriving, conquering, and leaving a legacy. The spirit inside you is fierce, relentless, and unbreakable. Every step you take is a march toward the greatness that's already inside you, waiting to be unleashed. The moment you release the need to always be right, a new kind of power emerges, one that pride can never offer. You stop battling for your ego's satisfaction and start seeking truth and growth. The urgency to defend your position fades because you understand that being right isn't the goal. Alignment is. When you let go of the need to win arguments or prove others wrong, you open doors that pride had firmly shut. Humility becomes your key to unlocking blessings that arrogance never allowed you to access. This humility isn't weakness, it's strength disguised in grace. You learn to listen deeply instead of reacting immediately. You absorb others' perspectives without feeling threatened. You pause before responding, choosing wisdom over impulsiveness. This shift softens hardened relationships and invites new connections. It creates space for healing conversations and reveals truths that stubbornness once concealed. You find that the more you listen, the more you understand, not just others, but yourself. Forgiveness becomes a revolutionary act of freedom, rather than a surrender to weakness. You stop carrying the heavy burden of grudges and resentment that once weighed down your spirit. Forgiving isn't about forgetting or excusing harm. It's about releasing yourself from the chains of the past. Every act of forgiveness loosens the grip of pain and creates room for peace to flourish. You reclaim your energy and refuse to be a prisoner of bitterness. Forgiveness is the ultimate power move for the chosen one, clearing the way for blessings to flow unhindered. Comparison loses its grip as gratitude takes root in your heart. Instead of measuring yourself against others' success or progress, you start appreciating your own journey. Every step, every stumble, every victory. You stop envying what others have because you recognize the unique path that was carved for you from the beginning. Gratitude rewires your mindset from scarcity to abundance, from lack to plenty. It turns your focus inward to the gifts you've been given and the growth you've already achieved. You step out of the shadow of comparison and into the light of appreciation. In this space of humility, forgiveness, and gratitude, you become ready to truly receive what's meant for you. You shed the ego that blocks blessings. You open your hands and heart to the divine flow, no longer holding on tightly to control or resistance. This surrender isn't defeat, it's trust. It's the conscious choice to allow your life to be shaped by something far greater than your own understanding. And that choice changes everything. With your heart open, you begin to understand that your purpose is bigger than comfort. You realize that destiny rarely calls us to the easy path. It asks for courage, the courage to step into the unknown, to face discomfort, to rise above fear. You no longer chase comfort or avoid pain. You lean into both as necessary parts of your growth. Your calling demands your full presence, even when the road is rough or lonely. Your pain becomes more than suffering. It becomes your message, Every wound, every hardship, every moment of brokenness is transformed into a testimony that can inspire, heal, and uplift others. You see your scars as bridges rather than barriers. Your story is no longer hidden, but shared, not as a sign of weakness, but as a beacon of hope. Your pain connects you to others who need to hear that survival is possible and victory is certain. Faith becomes your foundation, not your backup plan. You stop using belief as a last resort when everything else fails. Instead, faith becomes the ground beneath your feet, steady, unshakable, and unwavering. It is the lens through which you view every challenge and opportunity. It fuels your persistence when motivation fades and lights your way through darkness. Faith no longer waits for miracles. It is the miracle, manifesting through your consistent trust in divine timing and guidance. You live from authenticity, not performance. The masks fall away, and the roles you played for acceptance become irrelevant. You stop performing for applause, validation, or approval. Instead, you show up fully as who you are, flawed, evolving, powerful, and real. Your life becomes a living expression of your truth, a testimony to the journey you've walked and the person you've become. Authenticity magnetizes blessings because it vibrates on the frequency of alignment. And finally, you realize you were chosen all along. The waiting, the struggle, the isolation, the healing, none of it was a mistake or a detour. Every challenge was a preparation, every loss a setup, every moment of doubt a step towards certainty. You were never left behind, forgotten, or overlooked. The divine called your name before you even knew how to speak it. You were selected to carry a light, to walk a path, to fulfill a destiny that no one else could claim. This awakening isn't a destination, but a continuous becoming. You carry within you the power of those who came before and the promise of those yet to come. You are no longer a victim of circumstance or a prisoner of past mistakes. You are the chosen one, a vessel of grace, strength, and purpose, ready to receive every blessing waiting for you on the horizon.